Hi, I'm Bill Castelli, the Vice President of Government Affairs with the Maryland Association of Realtors, and today is Friday, February 5th, and I'm going to review the legislative activities of MAR during the past week. There were a number of bills introduced this week of concern to the association. One includes the Real Estate Commission's Real Estate Teams legislation, HB 406. This bill would provide the do's and don'ts of being in a real estate team in Maryland. And although the Real Estate Commission has had policies on what real estate teams can and can't do in Maryland, this will actually provide in the statute a clear guide of what real estate teams can do and who is liable for what when they belong to a real estate team. MAR supports this legislation, and if you want more information about this piece of legislation and other priorities, just go to mdrealtor.org, go to the Government Affairs section of the site, and click on 2010 Legislative Priorities, where you'll see a short description of the bill. There was also legislation introduced this week, HB 590, that would address the issue of short sales and whether forgiven debt in a short sale transaction can be taxed. MAR supports this bill. This bill says that, in fact, that the forgiven debt can't be taxed with recordation or transfer taxes in the sale. There were some hearings this week. There was a hearing on appraiser legislation, HB 42. This legislation would have made it illegal for a real estate appraiser to know the asking price or the listing price of a piece of property when they were conducting an appraisal. Although MAR was prepared to testify on this legislation, it was actually withdrawn before the hearing occurred. But obviously, this bill would have made it very difficult for real estate appraisers in Maryland to do their job. There was also a hearing on HB 62, which was legislation on septic tanks. And there was a law that was passed last year stating that septic systems within Maryland's critical areas had to put best available technology for reducing nitrogen on their systems when those systems failed. And while there was much agreement at the time that that law passed that the grant program available at the Maryland Department of Environment would provide a grant for the cost difference between the best available technology and a conventional system, there was a lot of activity over the last 3 months within the Department of Environment to means test those grants so that instead of getting 100% of that cost differential, homeowners within a critical area with failing systems were only getting partial grants. This bill would address that issue by stating that, in fact, the department's got to provide full grants for that cost difference, which was the understanding that many legislators had when this legislation was passed last April. In fact, we had a hearing panel who testified on that, which included the past president of the Anne Arundel County Association, Charlie Windsor, the current president of the Prince George's County Association of Realtors, Mike Cerrito, and the current president of the Southern Maryland Association, Tim Wood. All did a fine job. Next week, we're going to be looking at a couple of other bills, and their legislative committee is actually going to be reviewing over 40 bills that will address different aspects of real estate law, and that will be on Monday. And there will also probably be a vote on the Real Estate Commission's continuing education bill that would not increase continuing education hours for real estate agents, but would mandate that they would have to take an agency class, and for certain real estate licensees, they would have to take a broker supervision class. That bill probably will have its first vote next week. MAR supports that bill too. Well, that's it for this week in Annapolis, and thanks for tuning in.